Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Neutral Zone. I'm your host, Parker Bryant, and alongside me is men's ice hockey beat reporter Sierra Goodwill. Sierra, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Parker.
All right. This past weekend, the men's ice hockey team had its first conference games against Clarkson and St. Lawrence. The team beat Clarkson 5-3 and lost to St. Lawrence 2-0. Sierra, what were your thoughts on this past weekend?
Well, it was the first ECAC weekend, so before we get into the individual games themselves, we have to look and figure out the fact that these conference games have a different kind of intensity. There's a lot more riding on them than out-of-conference games, so they're just more unpredictable in general. But with Clarkson, the good thing about that win was it showed scoring diversity, something that this team desperately needs. 4 goal scorers in Chuksta, McKiernan, McMaster, and Tim Clifton. And then another good thing to take out of this game is Tim Clifton scored 2 goals. We talked about it earlier in the season between the men's hockey beat reporters that this team really needs to establish a consistent threat with the graduating class that they sent that graduated last season. So with Tim Clifton setting home 2 goals, that is a good sign for the Bobcats as they do need to develop that consistent threat. And then with the St. Lawrence loss, St. Lawrence is a team that Quinnipiac always struggles with. It was their only ECAC loss last season. Quinnipiac put up 25 shots, though. It's not like they struggled creating chances. They struggled finishing them. And St. Lawrence also did shut out Princeton 4-0 the day before. So Kyle Hayton, the St. Lawrence goaltender, is proving to be one of the most dominant goalies in the ECAC this season and will continue to be, in my estimation. But I don't think the split is too much to worry about. Again, like I said, it's the first conference weekend of the season, so it's always going to be unpredictable. And there's pros and cons, like I said, with the scoring diversity and not being able to finish his chances. So overall, I don't think it's too much. No need to fret yet.
Right. This past weekend, the men's ice hockey team, there were 2 power play goals Friday, and then they were 0 for 5 on Saturday. Sierra, are the power play woes over?
You know, I think it's too soon to tell. Yes, they did. It's a good sign that they got 2 power play goals against Clarkson, but they did go 0 for 5 the next day. It's this upcoming weekend against Dartmouth and Harvard, Harvard's ranked number 10 in the nation, could give some sort of indication whether or not they are truly over. But when you think about, again, Reed Cashman is gone along with Annis, Taze, and St. Denis from last year. That is literally the Quinnipiac power play from last year walking out the door. So it is kind of a whole new system that they need to create this year. And just because they got 2 power play goals against Clarkson, they still need to consistently be working on the power play to make it a consistent threat as it has been in program history. It takes time to rebuild. But like I said, with Tim Clifton knocking in 2 goals against Clarkson, one of them was a power play goal. So if they can establish 2 or 3 key players who can consistently contribute on the power play, then yes, maybe I'll say the power play woes are over. But until then, I'm going to say it's too early to tell.
Right. Now moving over to the goalie position. Lately, it seems the goalie. There's been a question for the position of goalie. And do you think this is possibly because the former goalie Michael Gartig has been missing from the lineup?
Well, yes, I think Quinnipiac played last year knowing that they had a brick wall behind them, so they were able to kind of take more chances offensively and not relax on defense, but just play with the sort of confidence that they know that if they do slip up, they've got one of the best in the country behind them, and that is missing this year. Rand still doesn't have things figured out, or maybe he's just trying to play mind games with Shortridge and Truhl or with everybody watching, or he actually does think that it's a benefit to have 2 goalies playing this season because it kind of throws other teams off not knowing who they have to prepare for. But Shortridge played against Clarkson. He did get the win, but he let in 3 goals on 25 shots. So if you compare that with Truhl's performance against St. Lawrence, he did let 2 in, and the team did lose. But in my estimation, St. Lawrence is a better team than Clarkson, and he faced 32 shots. So he faced 7 more than Shortridge, and he let in 1 less goal. And while the team did pull out a win against Clarkson, I still think Truhl, in my estimation, is the more consistent goaltender. But Rand Pecknell doesn't think so. I guess doesn't think the same way as me. But St. Lawrence is a better team than Clarkson, so I do think Truhl should have the upper hand there. I think Truhl had the more impressive game. Yes, they are missing Gartig, but I don't think the goaltending situation is too much to worry about since both goalies have proved to be good enough to get the starting nod.
So you don't think that the split of Shortridge on Friday night and True on Saturday night, you don't think that is going to affect the team too much going forward?
Well, I do think it will affect the defense in that they aren't as confident. They do have to play with an extra edge and an extra, just be able to sell out more, knowing that the person behind them isn't as sturdy as Gartig was last year. But no, I don't think it's too much to worry about.
All right. Now we're going to move over to the men's ice hockey USCHO polls. Quinnipiac recently dropped from 6th to 7th behind the top 5 of Minnesota Duluth, who had all votes go their way. Denver at number 2, Boston College at 3, Boston University at 4, and UMass Lowell at 5. Now this weekend upcoming is another pair of ECAC matchups between Dartmouth and Harvard here at Quinnipiac. Sierra, how do you think the Bobcats fare in these two matchups this weekend?
Well, it's going to be tough, but they are returning home. The crowd is going to play in their favor this weekend. Harvard, as I mentioned before, ranked number 10 in the country, so that is definitely going to be a huge matchup for the Bobcats. But we also have a few clips to show from last year against this when this team played Dartmouth and Harvard. So let's see how they fared against these two teams last year and break down some clips to kind of see if that can portray what is going to happen this year. You will see in the first clip, Derek Smith fires it in. Tim Clifton always seems to be able to get a little stick on the puck at the end. Here you see he is in perfect position between the last Harvard defender and the goaltender. Derek Smith fires it in. He is able to get the final touch and put the Bobcats on the board. Tim Clifton, obviously a key returner in this matchup on Friday. And there you see Sam Annis left wide open in point-blank range. He's just simply not going to miss from there. So if Harvard couldn't shut down the highest scorer on this team last year, that might be a good sign for the Bobcats this year. Then heading into the Dartmouth game, a wide open passing lane. Tim Clifton again on the doorstep is able to knock that one in from Tiffenworth. But look at this again, a wide open lane. This is a textbook passing sequence. A team like Quinnipiac, that just can't happen on Friday. If that does happen for Dartmouth, I can see the Bobcats pulling out the win. And then here, you'll see a little bit of what Quinnipiac does best, just selling out for the puck. This is a replay of the first clip here, getting in front of the net, putting that one in. So I think that Dartmouth and Harvard is going to be a challenge, but I do think that Quinnipiac will prevail against Dartmouth. The Harvard is a little bit more iffy of a story, but we'll see this weekend.
We shall see. Now, this is a reminder to everyone that the men's ice hockey beat reporters will be covering these games, so be sure to follow us on Twitter at Q30 Sports. When we come back, women's ice hockey beat reporter Phil Akery will be at the desk to talk some women's ice hockey.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Ball played up the middle. Iman Whalen with a little cheat off the puck. Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
MJ, it is time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&B Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
So what?
40
So what?
Points. If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac Intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another Monument player.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Neutral Zone. Phil Akery now joining me at the desk. Phil, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Parker. Glad to be here with you.
All right. This past weekend consisted of 2 losses for the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team, a 4-1 loss to Clarkson, and a 1-0 loss against St. Lawrence. Phil, what are your thoughts on this past weekend's sweep?
Well, Parker, there's no other way to say it. It was a disappointment for the team. There was a lot of hype coming into this weekend against 2 powerhouses of the ECAC in Clarkson and St. Lawrence. But as you knew from the first game against Clarkson, there was no offense. The team was coming off. The Bobcats were coming into this game after a 4-1 victory over Yale and an 8-0 victory over Brown. Now, of course, those 2 teams are not the same caliber as Clarkson, but they were 6 for 10 on the power play in that weekend, and then against Clarkson, 0 for 2 on the power play. the offense looked stagnant. They looked flat right out of the gate. I mean, yes, they had the one goal from freshman Katie Tabin, but that was it. And that was all the way almost, that wasn't from mid-ice, obviously, but it was from blue line. They were just had 16 shots on goal, and there were a lot of the same looks. The offense never really got creative with it. You know, a lot of the same shots came from the same areas on the ice. And again, Melissa Samoskevich and TT Cianfrano were both isolated for the most part. They couldn't get open. The defense of Clarkson did a fantastic job keeping them at bay, not scoring. And a lot of times they looked confused, to be quite honest with you. They were on the ground a lot, on the ice, just sitting there, not knowing where the puck was. And obviously, the play of Sydney Rossman was just not nice to watch, to be completely honest with you. She looked out of it the entire game. She looked dejected. She gave up a goal from middle of the ice, Parker. That doesn't happen a lot, but especially to a goaltender of Rossman's caliber, it was quite shocking, to say the least.
Yeah, speaking of shocking, Friday night, Rossman was pulled, and actually turns out that was her first time being pulled in her career. Do you think Clarkson was in her head?
I'm going to say no. Clarkson was not in her head. I know it seems like they were, but here's my reasoning behind it. Sydney Rossman is one of the best goaltenders in the ECAC, if not the country. And also, so Shea Tiley, the goalie for Clarkson. But Rossman, this was just one of those games where she wasn't prepared. I don't think it's that she knew the challenge of Clarkson, but she just wasn't in it at all. And she said that she didn't value every play as much as she needed to. And obviously, as you said, she got pulled. Abby Ives came in. I think Cass Turner took her out of the game to kind of clear her head, give her some space, because it's not like her to be this awful in games. I mean, that's really the only way to put it. She got taken out with almost 20 minutes left in the game. I don't think Clarkson was in her head, but, as we know, she bounced back the next game to only hold them to one goal.
Yes, good transition to our next topic. That Saturday game against St. Lawrence, do you think that was a bounce back for Sydney Rossman?
Oh, no, definitely. No question, Parker. I mean, to come back and face a red-hot St. Lawrence team, I mean, this team was the definition of red-hot. They came into this game against Quinnipiac undefeated, averaging almost 3 goals scored a game, and Rossman only holds them to 1. I would say that's a pretty good bounce back. And as Cass Turner said after the Clarkson game, she fully expected Rossman to bounce back in a fantastic way, and she did, as you can see in the results. And she said that, and Rossman herself said that she knew that she had to get over the loss to Clarkson quickly. That's the right mentality to have as the goalie. But also, besides Rossman's fantastic bounce back, you saw some surprise starters for Quinnipiac. I think Cass Turner wanted to shake up the lineup after the defense really did not do a good job at all against Clarkson. She started Emma Greco, who's typically on the second line, and she also started Alicia Berry, which was the biggest surprise for me, who's typically on the third line. And as you can see, it did good. So this weekend against Dartmouth and Harvard, I wouldn't be surprised if the defense had some different looks. Maybe Berry and Greco get some other starts. But it's good to see that the team has that necessary depth. And also another positive is that you saw Sarah Eve Kabu, still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, the freshman from Quebec. She made her debut, and she was already on the second line ahead of Kenzie Lancaster, who the previous weekend had scored her first 2 collegiate goals. Bold move from Cass Turner, but Sarah Eve has got fantastic puck awareness, and she's very quick on the ice.
All right, now we're going to move over to the women's ice hockey USCHO polls. Big drop-off for the women's team. They dropped from 5th to 8th in the polls. The top 5 being Wisconsin, Minnesota, Minnesota Duluth, St. Lawrence, and Colgate. This upcoming weekend is another set of ECAC matchups with Dartmouth and Harvard. Who needs to step up for Quinnipiac?
Well, I'm going to say that right now, on the offensive side of the puck, it has to be Melissa Samoskevich. It might seem like a surprise right now because obviously she was one of the best players on the team last year coming into her freshman year, but she hasn't been the offensive machine that she was last year. Last year, though, if you look at the stats, she did start off slow, and this year she's starting off slow again. So it's not like her to be like this right now, but she definitely needs to improve, start scoring more, get more points on her on the stat sheet. But one good thing from her, she has been mightily improved on the defensive side of the puck. And then when you go to the defensive side, I'm going to say Allison Rothke, the freshman, somewhat of an unknown, but she came into this year with high expectations. Cass Turner said that she's a fantastic two-way player, defensive and offensive side of the puck. As you can see right there on the board, she scored 102 points throughout high school, but she hasn't played in nearly 4 or 5 games after playing a lot on the second and third line in the beginning of the season. So I don't know what's behind that, but it's either people are jumping her on the depth chart or Cass Turner doesn't believe in her skills yet.
All right. Just a reminder, everyone else out there, that this Saturday's game at Harvard, the Q30 television beat reporters, women's ice hockey beat reporters, will be covering that. So be sure to check us out at Q30 Television on Twitter, and also be sure to check us out at Q30 Television. And that's all we have for today here on the Neutral Zone. This was a great episode from Phil and Sierra, men's hockey. Be sure to tune in next time on next Wednesday. I'm your host, Parker Bryant, signing off.